Come in today to talk to us about a lot of issues addressing the city and crime, of course, one of them. Chief Lyle Martin, thank you so much for coming in this afternoon.
Well, thanks for having me, Tim.
Well, Chief, I want to start talking about the recent homicides we had. The first reported in the city of Bakersfield was on New Year's Day. That was involving an individual in South Bakersfield. There was one just a few days ago in East Bakersfield. Is this an indication from where you sit of what we can expect for this new year? I know as we were ending 2018, there was a lot of talk about reducing crime. From where you sit, are you concerned about what you're seeing?
You know, when we look at statistics and when we're talking about homicides, for us, one is far too many. The problem with trying to address homicides is a lot of times it's there's a relationship, or people just end up at a place at the same time. So it's kind of hard for us in law enforcement to address most of the homicides. Now, when you're talking about gang enforcement and those types of things, then those are some of the things that we can affect. But what we're hoping for is to see that people develop more skills in conflict resolution and things of that nature. But yeah, 2 homicides and we're only 10 days into the year, that does concern me.
And to your department's credit, you did tackle a lot of gang violence. We had those high-profile young children who were killed in the last few recent years, and your department has done a lot of gang suppression efforts to reduce those numbers. We talked about Measure N. We've talked about that so much, in that sales tax increase in the city that's supposed to disperse a wide amount of money, up to $50 million, to public safety and to address the homeless issues. In terms of officers on the streets, more funding to address concerns from residents, to crime suppression. What can folks expect from this new funding stream to the department in this new year?
Well, the funding cycle doesn't start until April, and we won't start seeing actual money for hiring until probably July. So you're not going to actually see numbers of police officers probably until January of 2020. But organizationally, we're not sitting around on our hands, because we have an opportunity to look at all of our systems and our processes, and one of the things we've identified are some of our professional staff categories where we can hire professional staff and get some of the current officers back on the street. So you're going to see a lot of things that we're looking at versus infrastructure, equipment. All of those types of things have to be looked at prior to the officers getting here. Because if I don't have the vehicles for them, or the space to where we're going to put them, all of those types of things have to be done prior to the officers getting here. You have to remember, an academy is 6 months, and then they have to go through a field training officer program. So it takes a while for us to actually get an officer on the street. So we're looking at the other things that we can do to start, so the public can actually see us making some strides prior to those officers getting hired.
Yeah, and you were talking about those professionals, the police techs that can help respond to crashes and do some of the reports and alleviate some of those from your other officers. Back to crime and crime suppression, obviously there's been a lot of talk. We've covered it here. The Bakersfield 3, those unsolved cases, those have been in the media, and detectives being able to solve these crimes. The county's dealing with the same situation. They're in a staffing crisis as well. How do we get out of this in terms of being able to address cold cases, getting enough officers to these scenes, and to take reports? Is this a waiting game? And you mentioned there's some shifting that can happen, but what can people really expect from the department in 2019 in terms of all those issues of detectives on cases, of response times, and of public safety?
Well, that's quite a mouthful there. So I'll take them. I'll try to take them one bite at a time.
Sure, thank you.
When you're looking at response times are about data analytics. I'm very quantitative type of person. So we're looking at where are the officers, when we're looking at trends, events, and predictive policing, looking at analytics, and are we going to have police officers in the area when we kind of expect certain calls. There's certain types of calls and certain days of the weeks and hours where we can have resources there. Oop, lost you. Where we could have resources there that are ready to go, or could actually stop something from happening. So there's lots of things that we can do prior to being able to deal with some of these situations. You talked about crashes and those types of deals. Police service technicians are they're qualified to also do cold burglary reports, deal with traffic incidents, and other types of things as well. So there's lots of things we can do to ramp up before we hire the officers.
And we were talking before, just you've already added 2 motorcycle officers to the fleet with the hope of getting 4. Obviously, this was something that was ramped down in the previous years because of injuries and cost to the department. Are bringing those motorcycle officers back to the BPD, does the risk outweigh the benefit in terms of, you talked about responding to those crashes and being able to keep folks safer? Does the cost outweigh to the benefit?
You know, this is one of the things that as a police chief or any law enforcement executive, this is one of the toughest things that we have to deal with, because I have to send moms and fathers, daughters, and sons out into harm's way. And, you know, I don't take that lightly. And on a motorcycle, it is a little more dangerous. But the men and women who sign up for this job, they accept some of those inherent dangers. But when I look at the statistics year over year in regards to injury and fatal accidents, I have to look at another way for us to address it. You know, I look at it from an aspect of a father. When I sit at a red light and the light cycles to green and 4 to 7 vehicles go through that intersection without any fear of consequences and without any regard for their fellow residents, you know, I can't sit on my hands and not do anything. We're going to have to take another approach to it. And having been a motorcycle officer, I can tell you that it is much more easier and effective on a motorcycle to do traffic enforcement than it is in a patrol car. Also, there's some things that motor officers can look at, as well as when you're looking at abandoned vehicles on the side of the road or inside neighborhoods. They can quickly go cite those vehicles because those are quality of life issues. So there's a lot of things that go into the motorcycle officers and the work that they can do that can make our city not just safer, but also increase our quality of life.
I want to ask you about the safety for your officers, because we've been following just a story today. Another officer killed in Davis, California, just days on the job. There was that officer in Newman, the corporal killed during a traffic stop. How are you preparing your officers these days? It seems like there is just no regard and no effect for officers, it seems, anymore in terms of these instances. They are becoming so common and so violent. How do you prepare your officers in this day and age and prepare them to go out in this environment?
Well, the training has to be top notch, which ours is. And we tell our officers, you are always on your guard, but you don't have to be rude. I mean, actually being nice to people actually enhances officer safety. It doesn't decrease officer safety. Somebody's less likely to get upset or become more aggressive if you're nicer to them and you're professional with them. But keeping that in mind, you know, we have lots of tools on our tool belt, and the first tool is our brain and how we talk to people and how we approach situations. But you are absolutely correct. There's violent nature and violent people out there, and we have to be prepared to deal with that as well.
And given all that, and given what we were talking about before with staffing and with some of the challenges that you may be facing this year fiscally, and also just getting enough bodies out there, how's the department doing? How's morale? How are the officers, from detectives to dispatchers to the techs? How is everyone doing at BPD?
You know, everybody's doing well. I get I get constant feedback. I'm a hands-on and managed by walking around, and I think I have my finger on the pulse, and they see the positives that we're doing, and they have an actual input on their work environment, and that's what people want. Because, you know, I've said it over and over, I'm not the one out in the patrol car that's pushing that patrol car, so they should have an input on what equipment goes in there, where it goes, and how we do those types of things. My job is to make their job much easier and be that resource manager and a risk manager. It's kind of like going back to the motorcycles. That was something that the officers really wanted, and being the head of the organization, you know, I can't be risk averse. I have to be a risk manager, but there are some inherent dangers in this profession. But the men and women of the Bakersfield Police Department, they show up every day wanting to serve this community. We live in this community. Our kids go to school with your kids, and we're happy to serve, and we're excited about where we're going in the future.
On a much lighter note, I want to talk about some issues downtown. It's no secret, if folks have been driving through anywhere downtown, you've seen these new bird scooters. What's your opinion on these? What's going to be the future of any enforcement on this? What is BPD doing now really to enhance safety perhaps in that department?
You know, when we look at that, it's a three-pronged process, I guess. You know, you look at one, we're going to educate. So we're going to go out, and when people are not using them appropriately, they have to follow the rules of the road and those types of things. And right now it's something new, so people are excited about it. And we're hopefully that, you know, you've got a new business, so we want to educate the public on how to use them, but we want to encourage businesses to come downtown. In the Bakersfield Police Department, we live here too. We want businesses to thrive, but we also want to empower people to, you know, give us a call and let us know when people are not using those things appropriately, and if they're putting people in danger, then we will move from the education part to the part that most people don't like, and that's the enforcement part. So right now we're in an education mode. We're stopping people, we're talking to them, we're telling them, you know, the rules of the road, but at some point, if that doesn't work, then we'll have to move into an enforcement mode.
Sounds like there's a grace period.
Yeah, pretty much.
Word on the bird.
The word on the bird.
Bakersfield Police Chief Lyle Martin, thank you so much for making time for us today. We appreciate all you do, and continued success at the department.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it.